I would love to see the FBI look into these cases.
For months, calls for an FBI investigation.
I think that the state police, the FBI, the CIA, whoever, needs to come in and investigate.
With at least 6 mysterious deaths involving African Americans from Benton Harbor, family, friends, community leaders, all asking for more to be done.
Do you think the FBI should get involved?
Yes, I do.
You don't think that investigators here are doing what they need?
No, I don't.
It turns out the FBI was already involved in a couple of the cases. St. Joseph Interim Director of Public Safety, Steve Newbecker, made that point clear.
The 2 cases that we're talking about today, the Eric McGinnis case and the Timothy Ellen case, the FBI was involved in both those investigations.
Police reports show the FBI assisted in the search for Timothy Bulldog Allen in 2011, and the Department of Justice reviewed the case of Eric McGinnis from 1991.
The Eric McGinnis case, a task force was formed involving the agencies of the FBI, the state police, and all local jurisdictions.
While it's not clear how any of these people ended up in the water,
we are learning new information about the events that led to the killing of a Benton Harbor teenager 30 years ago.
The state attorney general's office releasing new details from what it uncovered in an investigation over the last 6 months. And News 8's David Horak is live in our Kalamazoo studio with the details. David.
Good evening, guys. First off, in this 9-page report, the AG's office determined that there were 3 suspects in the killing of Eric McGinnis. Attorney General Dana Nessel says there were pivotal interviews with people who witnessed the events on that night in 1991 that changed this case from a drowning to a homicide. And she believes race was a key part in the killing. In the report, the Attorney General's office details what happened the night of May 17, 1991. They named the main suspect as Curtis Pitts. Witnesses say he kicked 16-year-old Eric McGinnis on the pier, knocking him into the St. Joseph River. Witness interviews conducted by state investigators now and local police then say Pitts referred to black people by the N-word.
Last Sunday, 18-year-old Nicholas Gunn managed to capture video of a confrontation he had while covering the Krazel Art Fair for the Benton Spirit community paper.
What is wrong with you?
A couple of artists didn't want Gunn taking pictures of their copyrighted works.
I understand what you're saying. Please don't touch him. Don't touch him. Nobody's touching him. Come on. Come on. Do it. Sorry. He's doing the same. I didn't touch you, man. Come on. You're not.
There was some chest bumping, some shouting. Gunn says he started recording shortly after 2 separate artists called him the N-word.
When they're cussing at me and calling me the N-word, humiliating me in front of all these people, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this like the downest I've ever felt.
You're really?
There were no physical injuries. The whole thing lasted about 2 minutes, 40 seconds. By the time it was over, there were 3 police officers on scene. There were no arrests. Gunn holds the title of Mr. Benton Harbor. There is a crown on his desk and perhaps a hole in his heart as he recalled the theme of the speech he gave during the competition about advice he received from his family.
They always tell me not to go across the bridge, never go to St. Joe. They don't want you there. I serve in the community, and I love everybody.
Despite the setback, Gunn says he'll continue to concentrate on great things his community has to offer on both sides of the bridge.
Context of white supremacy. Just for detail, we do not just play music for music. Slum Village, that is Michigan's own And even since we do pay attention to words, that song tainted even the group Slum Village. Where do the black people live? The ghetto. Hear more about that tomorrow with Rick James. Anyway, our broadcast for today, there was, I guess a couple weeks back, we heard about the Crazel Art Festival in Michigan, St. Joseph specifically. And you heard some of the news segment there, young black male being terrorized at the event. There were a couple important components of this that really stood out and made this important as to why I wanted to do this program today. I think we heard both of them in the segment about the population of St. Joseph. We'll get to that. Racially restricted regions. We've talked about that many, many times. And then the victim in this case, when he was doing this interview, and he said, man, you know, my family, relatives, you know, they had always told me, don't go to St. Joe. They don't want you over there. Fascinated because we were just talking about that and sharing information with family, relatives about racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works. We were just talking about that when this whole situation erupted. And all of that, you heard the other segments, Eric McGinnis, Timothy Allen, these other black males who were victims of racism who died. Thankfully, our guest today didn't have a fatal encounter in Old St. Joe. But I didn't know anything about this area, St. Joseph, Michigan. I've never been to Michigan. I started researching. There is a whole book about racism in St. Joseph called The Other Side of the River. Now, the program that we did preceding this one, just on Monday, David Houck, Black Bodies in the River. I said last week it was a stunning moment. I was preparing for that program, so I'm reading his book, Black Bodies in the River. I stopped, take a break, prepare for this program, say, wow, Eric McGinnis, who is that? I look and they're talking about Eric McGinnis, black male, found in the river in St. Joseph. I'm not going to read the whole thing to set up the program, but just for our listeners, The Other Side of the River, Chapter 25, The River, that's the chapter of the title. It reads, the Benton Harbor community doesn't buy the official explanation of Eric McGinnis's death. Blacks, I was told again and again, don't go to water. Simple as that. At Clementine's, a St. Joseph restaurant, maybe our guest has been, that sits alongside the Pier 33 Marina, I listened to a conversation between Carolyn Graves, the school bus dispatcher, and Mamie Yarbrough, the school board member. We don't swim, Yarbrough asserted. We don't run to the water. That's in our history. When people wanted to get black people, they drown them. We just talked about this on Monday. They put you in a crocker sack and put bricks in the bottom, Graves added, or tie you to a gin, Emmett Till. There aren't a lot of black people who can swim. My parents told us to keep away from the water, that it was too much to drink. Yarbrough laughed at the memory. We even talked about that with Herbert Orsby. They say Eric's death was an accident, Graves offered. That's what they say, Yarbrough said. We know Eric McGinnis didn't go to the water on his own. We know that. That's what we believe. Graves agreed that somebody held him down and drowned him. They'll come forward. They won't be able to live with it. I heard this a lot in my conversations with adults from Benton Harbor. Black people don't go to water, especially, they'd stress, rivers. At first it struck me as both farcical and sad. Here, blacks were repeating the same stereotypes uttered by those on the other side of the river. Who can forget Al Campanis, general manager of the LA Dodgers, who remarked on national television that blacks lacked the natural buoyancy to swim well? Why give credence to such nonsense? Why this myth that blacks viewed rivers as unfriendly, if not the enemy? And why suggest that Eric McGinnis, who was fit and could, according to his mother, swim, wouldn't attempt just about anything, including crossing the river to flee the St. Joseph cops? A little history, might help. I'll stop there, but I thought that was great context both for our conversation today as well as, man, didn't we just talk about this on Monday? And the title of the book, Black Bodies in the River, and he even has a passage in the book talking about this is a part of white culture. This part of the river is known. A Negro has been uppity and got on our nerves. This is where we will take him to beat him and drown him. We just talked about that Monday. Anywho, our guest for today, I'm so glad we could have him on the program. Interrupted his eating and everything. We'll chat about what happened at the Crazel Art Fair and hear what did his parents tell him about going to St. Joe. So glad to have him on the program. Joining us live, Mr. Nicholas Gunn. Mr. Gunn, are you with us, sir?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for letting us interrupt a little bit of your beautiful summer evening. You have your website, Nick Eats, quite the Epicurean, going out and trying all the great places to eat in Michigan. If you'd like to tell folks anything about who you are, the work you do, and your website, Nick Eats.
Yeah. So my name's Nick Gunn. I just graduated. I'm from senior at Berrien Springs High School, and I've led a lot of different outreach things in the community. I lead a Bible study with about 120 students at Berrien Springs High School. I've just graduated. Now I'll be attending Andrews University this coming fall. I'm a firefighter for St. Joseph Township, Station 2. I'm a writer for the Benton Spirit newspaper. I'm on the radio every Tuesday for 105.3. I host my own show for Benton Harbor Team Solutions. I'm a contributor to Moody on the Market. It's a local news outlet. And with Nick Eats, it's something I like to do to highlight local things in our community throughout our county and Michiana area. You know, that's southwest Michigan and the northern part of Indiana. So I love to highlight the great things that are happening in our community.
Incredible. Just grad. Can you tell folks, is it all right for us to ask, how old are you, sir?
Yeah, I just turned 18 a few months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you for taking some time out of your schedule, young man, to speak with us old fogies. And you've got your whole summer and life right there in front of you. All the community service work that he does, just graduated, about to go to college, does the Bible study group, and trying to support local businesses with Nick Eats. You can see his YouTube channel and go to his webpage. It's linked right here. He was currently holding the title Mr. Benton Harbor, crowned at the Blossom Time Community Pageant. I mean, what in the world? Outstanding young dude, handsome young fella. I mean, what more could you ask? Like, wow, great guy. Before we get to what happened at the art fest, well, I guess to make sure for folks who haven't seen, if in case they didn't see the video, what have you, you're a black male, is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. Just for folks to know. To start our program, we normally go with definitions, so I'll start with our definition just so we can have clarity. The term racism, if you had to explain, like we get to the Crazel Art Festival and they say this is an incident of racism, if you had to explain it to a child, a 10-year-old, and they said, well, what is racism? Your definition, what you mean when you say racism, you would explain to them racism is...
I would say racism is something that you being discriminated against based off of your demographic, your race, pretty much, your skin color, people judging you based off of your skin color. That's what I would say to a young child.
Okay. People judging you off of your skin color. And you said discriminating against you based on your skin color.
Right.
Okay. Can anybody practice racism, meaning discriminate against you on the basis of skin color? Can anybody do this, or is this limited to a certain group of people?
Yeah, I think anybody could do that.
Okay. Okay. Have you personally ever practiced racism?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. You think it's possible for black people to practice racism against other folks?
I've listened a little bit into that, but I've understood that I think black people could be prejudiced, but I don't know if racism, if black people could be racist toward other races.
Okay. Much obliged for indulging. And again, we normally would do this at the beginning of our program with a few tweaks, but same thing, same principle, basically, just words are important. About to go to college, they'll do a lot of emphasis on that, glossary and definitions and such. Okay, so he said he's still learning. I'm still learning too, so that's no problem there. He's still thinking, he said he's heard some of that, thought about some of that. Black people can be prejudiced, not racist. Can people who are not white, is it possible for them to practice racism if they are not white?
Yeah, I think so. Well, in America, I would say that, I mean, it's more possible for lighter complected people to be racist. In America, I can't remember what I was looking into. I forgot it was a professor that I was hearing it from that talked a little bit about this, but I don't know most of the terminology and everything towards it.
Got you. No problem. Still learning. Still learning. Me too. Okay. Do you think it's possible for someone classified as white to be a victim of racism, for someone who is not white to practice racism against someone who is white?
Yeah, I think someone could be, a white person I think could be a victim of racism.
Okay. I know you just said the professor. I know you said his name. You couldn't remember or what have you and all that, but are there like any books or like maybe documentaries or videos or content that you studied or read to help you like try to understand what racism is?
Yeah. I think I'm trying to think of the professor's name. I can't. It's not coming to me currently. But what I heard from his point of view that African Americans in America can't be racist, but could be prejudiced. Because the power structure in America isn't turned towards African Americans.
Okay. Do you remember, was this a white professor or a non-white professor?
It was non-white. It was black.
Black professor. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe if it pops to you before you exit, maybe you can let us know, so we can go check out this person. Let's see. All right, so that's that. Who do you think is more informed about what racism is and how it works? Meaning the daily operations of why black people end up being in a tough time, that sort of thing. Do you think white people are more informed about what racism is and how it works? Or do you think non-white people are more informed about what racism is and how it works?
I would think more non-white people would be informed about racism through what all has happened with slavery and Jim Crow. It would be more mindful to a person of color to notice what racism is to them and their families and what they've been through with their experiences.
Okay. Much obliged. All right, so this is one huge component, and I'm doing it this way deliberately because this would be chronologically accurate. This is one of the huge reasons why I was so eager and happy to talk to you today, Mr. Gunn. Again, you can visit his YouTube channel, website, Nick Eats. Lots of information. You're going to Michigan, want to support some local eateries, Nick Eats. So in the video, we heard a little bit of it in the introductory audio. Way before we even get to Crazel Art Fair, you said, my family always, I even thought that was key because that would suggest there's more than one time, they always warned me about going to St. Joe. They said they don't want you over there. This is one like, oh man, like brother, if you ever get to talk to someone and they are captivated, like they are sitting on, I don't know if the young people that you work with at the Bible study, maybe if they are sitting on the edge of their seats, like, oh my God, what is he going to say next? What's in the next chapter? Like if that's the way that they are listening with rapt attention, that's how I'm going to be as you give us the response. If as much memory as you can, as much detail, which family members were telling you about St. Joe, and with as much detail as possible, what did they tell you, and at what age did they begin telling you about St. Joe?
For pretty much as long as I can remember, growing up, crossing the bridge. I don't live too far from it, but we'll be driving over there, over the bridge to St. Joe, and we'll see, like, just to do a few errands. We'll see, like, say we see a black person walking over the bridge or riding a bike over the bridge, or a black person in the area, and then they'll be like, well, he's like not like how he's out right now. He's not safe, like not walking over a bridge. He's like, we hope no like police see him, or like somebody with ill intention see him. Then other times, we'll be listening to the news, hearing something about a cop or someone, and they'll be like, yeah, don't want to go to St. Joe. So many stories of past events that have happened with black people being in St. Joe. Pretty much as long as I can remember, different family members, my parents, my dad, my mom, my family members, cousins, people who I know in the community, family, friends, leadership, people in leadership, always have told me that that's not somewhere you would want to be at, especially alone. You don't want to be there alone. And if you do go there, make sure that people know that what are you doing, your family, make sure your family knows that you're going to be there, what you're going to be doing, how long you plan to be there, because they don't want something to happen to you. And like I said it in my Mr. Ben Harvard speech, like, and we do a speech to it's hundreds of people in the audience, all from Ben Harbor, and you want people to know what to feel with what you're saying. And I mean, it was bittersweet to talk about my lifetime as being a young person and hearing all these different stories about being the African American that lives in Benton Harbor and who doesn't want to go to St. Joe. So I wanted to talk about how we could bridge the gap. So I talked about how I went to St. Joseph to meet with the city manager and leadership in St. Joseph to try and find out more about racism that is happening between the two cities. And I mean, before I even told my dad that, while I was telling my dad that I was going to go there to do this, he was like, yeah, you better watch out. Like, you don't want to get step on the wrong people, and you don't want everybody to find out that you're doing this. And because if you do, you might end up in the river. And different things. My whole life, I've been told not to go to St. Joseph by pretty much everyone that I have a close tie with. So.
Wow. I said I was on the edge of my seat. That was like a big one where as soon as I heard that in the audio say, and to give context, the day that we heard this, or when I say we, like the listeners on the program, we were listening to the audio. And the very day that we played that, a listener dialed in and he said, man, how do you share information with your family, people you care about racism? I'm having a really tough time with that. Either they don't want to hear it or they don't want to listen to it. They block it out and blah, blah, blah. The very day. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I got to, talk to him. 'Cause so many times we hear the exact opposite. We hear so many young people and they say, or even older people, doesn't matter. Where they say, man, nobody, my parents didn't talk to me about racism. Nobody talked to me about racism, or they didn't, tell me that this was a problem or give me any warnings. From what we heard, that is not the case here. I think he said from everybody that he cares about, that cares about him, they all told him, ooh, you're going over that bridge. Let us know. Like, whoa, do not play around. Like, this is no place you want to be messing around by yourself. Let us know. You could end up in the river. After hearing this, you said as long as you can remember from everybody, public leaders, not even family, you said that, hey, I've heard this the whole time. Like, wow, what is going on? Let me try to learn about racism. Let me go and see if I can bridge the gap, using your terms. Go talk to some of the folks in St. Joe and see what's going on. What's the problem? Let's see if we can make this better. Your father comes in and says, whoa, don't let people find out you're doing that. You could get in trouble. You could end up in the river. Like, that is, wow. I mean,
and
go ahead.
Even recently, like I was doing that project in the last year, but recently there's a PhD student who's working about doing racism projects, and at the university I'll be attending, she's a chaplain at Andrews University, and she's getting her PhD, and she went to me asking me like, hey, you live in Ben Harbor, you're Mr. Ben Harbor, could you connect me and take me around the city, the Twin Cities, they call us the Twin Cities, Benton Harbor and St. Joseph. And I'm like, yeah, like I can introduce you to different people, different leaders in our area. And her project is on racism in between two cities that are in very, very close proximity. And we're doing this project. So I was meeting with the police chief, Steve Newbecker, and I was building, like, this whole year as a firefighter at St. Joseph Township. I've been able to meet with the chief, Steve Newbecker, and he's out in the community, and I've been able to meet with different leadership throughout St. Joseph. And I mean, it was kind of crazy that this happened while me and this student, her name's Danielle Pilgrim, for us to be doing this project and on racism, trying to bridge the gap, find out what's wrong, that this event happened at Krasel. So.
Context of white supremacy, if I may, very respectfully. Again, I'm so thankful to have you to chat it up and share a bit of your time. Words are very important. Again, hopefully you'll learn that at Andrews College. Words are critically important. I would humbly submit it is not crazy that this happened at this moment while you are doing this project with Miss Pilgrim. It is. I'll have to pause on that one. Wow, at this moment, for this to happen with this project, that is not an accident. That is not crazy. Meant to happen. Maybe even added emphasis for you to really pay attention if this is a project where you are already studying about what is racism. In fact, have you read the book since you're doing this whole project and you're in the whole academic mode? I love that. Still learning myself. Are you familiar with Alex Kotlowitz? Make sure I'm spell it out for you. Kotlowitz. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the book. I'm I've never read it, page to page, front to back, but I mean, everybody in this area pretty much knows about that book. I went to a play that pretty much tried to depict the different stories that are in that book, and I mean it's the leaders that are in that book, the people that are in that book, the police officers. Some of them are still around, still in the area. A lot of them are still around and still in the area. So, I mean, you could really, this is really prevalent to today. So,
I would say it might be worth a read, particularly after the incident, the Crazel Art Festival that you endured. They talk about summer reading. Might be a great time to read this book, because I didn't know about that. And I'm not, talking down to you or anything like that just because I'm some old fogey. I haven't read this book. I didn't even know about it till I heard about your situation. I didn't know who Eric McGinnis was or anything until your situation. And I started researching St. Joseph. One of the first things that I did, in fact, if I could dump 2 books on you, since you are a young scholar in the midst of this project trying to learn about racism. Are you familiar with James Loewen? Does that name mean anything to you?
No, I'm not familiar with that name.
Okay. He passed away last year. He's a white man. He wrote the book Sundown Towns. He researched many areas in the north, like Michigan. Michigan is a big state in his book, one that he talks about. But do you know what a sundown town is? Are you familiar with that term?
I would assume that means if the sun's down, you wouldn't want to be there.
For black people, exclusively. Yeah. Yes. Intuitive. Yes. Yeah. I don't think that's an accurate term because it doesn't really convey the terrorism behind that, because I mean it could be death, it could be gangs of whites, including white children, coming out to they called them nigger shooters, I believe, to pelt and assault. That's almost what happened at the Crazel Art Fair. Get out of here! You're not supposed to be here, including death. And this was all throughout, all over the state of Michigan. But that's one of the main themes of his book, that most of these towns were in places like Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, in the north, not in the south. But he has a page, even though he died last year, but he researched this. I think this is probably his most important work. He has a whole page on St. Joseph. His comments, it says, while St. Joseph was never all white, it is an interesting town in contrast to nearby Benton Harbor. And by the way, when he talks about Mr. Gunn, about how close these towns are, Benton Harbor is a 6-minute drive from St. Joseph. We're not talking about the other side of the state, like they're twin cities, so-called, for a reason. Like you could walk. Can't you walk this? You could walk this if you had 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably. I've ridden my bike over the bridge, and it took me about 5 minutes.
Oh, 6-minute drive, y'all. 5 minutes on the bike. Like we're talking right there, right there. So he continues. He says,
they're touching together.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they're touching together. Ben Harbor and St. Joe, they're right together.
They're touching
on the map.
Said. Oh my.
Yeah.
Same place.
Yeah, same place. Twin Cities.
Mr. Loewen continues. He says, connected with St. Joseph by a bridge, Benton Harbor was 94.4% black in 2000 compared to 94.6% white St. Joseph. Now, according to the 2020 census, St. Joseph is still over 85% white. Probably higher than that because they got Latino, and some of that is white Latino, so it could still be around 90% white. He continues, according to the resident, the bridges separating the two cities have relevant meanings. I have lived in the St. Joseph, Michigan area for the past 12 years. Interestingly, a few years after moving here, a local resident claimed to me that until recently, St. Joseph had an unofficial curfew on blacks and would actually enforce it by raising the drawbridges over the St. Joseph River that connect Benton Harbor with St. Joseph, thus making it much less convenient for Benton Harbor residents to get into St. Joseph. This is email testimony from 2006. Have you heard this before?
I've never heard that, but I know that on the 4th of July, the city of St. Joseph does a pretty good fireworks show. And I know a lot of African Americans, a lot of black people in Benton Harbor were trying to get there, but when they got there, to their surprise, the bridge was up. and I had the mayor of St. Joseph on my radio show, and I was like, I brought it to her attention, and she was like, "Oh, like we don't control the bridge," and she told me that MDOT, it's a contract who's over the bridge, and she said that the city doesn't have any control over the bridge, and I was like, well, like a lot of family members, a lot of friends were mad, saying it's racism. You check your Facebook. Everything. Seeing something like that and hearing something like that from in the past that people had testimony from, like it really makes me think that it's racism, that they don't want people from Benton Harbor, black people from Benton Harbor to be in St. Joseph. And I all I've heard is that my entire life.
Got to go back and hear this interview with the mayor. That's why, just for listeners, everybody, myself too, reading is more important than watching television. Like, oh man, because now that is not in sundown towns, but once you've read the book, then you know, oh, he has a website where he follows up all of these places that, you know, he got information about after the book was published, including St. Joe, to be able to come back at the mayor like, hey, this is apparently a part of a long tradition of keeping these bridges up to make it difficult for black people to access the town. And and James Lowen is a white man, so it's a lot more difficult. Oh, get out of here. That's some, a respected white man, no less. Everybody, oh my gosh, James Lowen died. And oh, he wrote all these books. So, hey. And then I suspect there are some white people who are alive who will remember, oh yeah, we did keep the bridges up to keep the niggers out, and all the like, yeah, we did, yeah. Context of whites, and that is so tacky. We don't control the like, really from the mayor. We don't control who would have the authority to raise which could be like a safety hazard. Like, my goodness, people are thinking they need to get to the hospital or whatever, and whoa, the bridge.
Yeah, people were telling me that, like, what if there was like an emergency and you gotta hurry up and rush out, and the bridge is up all night, and so yeah, it's sad to think of.
Common sense, I would think, like, my goodness, if the bridge is always down and now he said it's up all night, like, what in the world? Like, what is going, and no notice? You're telling me you're the mayor of St. Joseph. The mayor is raised unexpectedly, no notice, for 12 hours on July 4th, no less. And you didn't know anything about this? You don't know how that, like, come on. Like, what kind? You should recall right now. Let's go. New mayor, like, this is absurd. And it is a safety hazard. You got people who got medical emergencies and children and all the rest of it. And I got things to do. And what? And then you do this to both of the, like, come on. And this is another, when we talk about power differential, I want you all to think, anywhere in the world, would black people have the ability close a canal, a bridge, an airspace, and totally restrict white people's access to a region? if you all can think of how about this, since we got Elon Musk, right? We're doing space travel. If you can think of any location like that in the known universe, let me know. Black people got a satellite somewhere maybe. And bang, white people can't access it, can't use it. They got a space station maybe. Don't you think of stopping here to refuel on your way to Pluto? This is just us. RBG. Red, black, and green, right? Right. Anywho, so with so your family says, or everybody, all the black people have been saying this for all of these years. You've heard these different incidents, even the July 4th thing, like recently, like, dang, we can't even cross to go to the fireworks show. All of this, and you say, hey, I'm going to be an ambassador. I'm doing this. Is Danielle Pilgrim, incidentally, is she a white person or a non-white person?
She's black.
She's black.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on for her. Doing great work down at Andrews. So you meet her. We're going to do this project on racism in the two cities. Maybe we can chat it up after the project's done. We'd love to check it out. I'm sure listeners would too. If you get through all of this, so is it you believed your family, but you wanted to be courageous and try to help solve this problem, or was it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I like, as a firefighter, like cadet, it's St. Joseph Township, and I don't want to be afraid to go 3 minutes to my countering city. It's like, I'm thinking like, this is all a part of my community. This is all where I live. I'm not going to be restricted. I don't want to be restricted because of the color of my skin. And I mean, I have friends that are in St. Joseph. The Barron County Commissioner for St. Joseph City, I'm really close with, and he's black. He's the county commissioner for 80% white community, and I talk to him all the time. And I mean, I don't want to be restricted and not go into a place that I think I should be welcomed. And I just wanted to try and figure out, like, hey, is this racism thing actually happening in my community? And I wanted to know what can I do to make it not happen as much as possible, and what can I do to make more black people want to go there and try and put an end to, don't go there at night, don't go there at all, don't go there alone. I wanted to put an end to it. So that's why I wanted to start going over there. I mean, with the YouTube channel Nick Eats, it's about a diverse group of people, a diverse group of my friends going around the different local restaurants. And I mean, I shouldn't be scared to text my group chat, hey, we're all going to meet at St. Joe tonight, and we're going to go eat, and we're going to have a good time. And I shouldn't be afraid of something happening. So that's really why I wanted to go there, even though that I've heard all the bad stories. I've heard all the different things that have happened with black people being there, but I still wanted to go. Because again, I think all of this is a part of our community, and I think that we should be able to not be restricted.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Nicholas Gunn, firefighter cadet. Man, come on. Brilliant young man. 2 questions. You said you have friends in St. Joe. These are people classified as white, some of your young friends?
Yep, they're white. Yep.
Okay. And you said that you, as I stated, you wanted to be courageous. This is happening. I'm a firefighter cadet. That's all about bravery. I'm not a coward. I'm not supposed to be afraid of going something that, again, for folks, 5 minutes. I don't want to feel like, oh, no, I can't go over there. I want to go over and help to solve this problem. Let me go and talk to some of the folks in leadership and the mayor, enforcement officers. Let me speak to them. What can be done to help solve this problem? Did you get information? Like, did they give you, these are some specific things that could be done to help eliminate racism so that black people are not mistreated when they come to St. Joseph? Did you learn some specific things?
I didn't. It's in video. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's Nick Eats Meets the St. Joseph City Manager John Hodgkins, and it's a part we mentioned about what the city's doing to combat racism. It's like a few boards and committees that they tried putting together that I've heard nothing about. But I don't. I think that may be them trying. But I think that it's a lot more. It's a lot more that the organizations that are there to so-called bring togetherness, they're not doing a good enough job. When I went to the Krasel Art Fair, I could count on my hands how many black people were there. It was about 3, and I was one of them. And the events, they don't advertise to. I write for the only African American newspaper in Southwest Michigan, and most of those events, they don't advertise to our black newspaper. They don't want, and they don't do that because they don't want to see us over there. They don't want to see black people there. It's a lot of different things that they don't want us over there. So, I have the things that they've told me that they do to combat racism I don't think is enough. But I guess it may be them trying at the same time. So, yeah.
I found a lot of times individuals classified as white, they will invest a lot more time pretending, faking some sort of commitment to ending racism, replacing it with justice. They will do a lot more of the faking as opposed to let's do some sincere, let's get down and do this work. Let's make sure that we do not have 3 black people at the Krasel Art Festival and then one of them to be terrorized out of the 3. Like, come on. We're going to have a win, particularly if there are that many black. It's not like it's no black people. Like, you got to go get a jet or something to try and truck them in from thousands. You got black people who could walk to the Krasel Art Festival, I'm sure, or at least bike 5 minutes, get a little exercise. Woo! All right, let's get to the Krasel Art Fair. In fact, let's get to the Krasel Art Fair. We heard a little bit of the audio at the beginning. So we had a fire cadet, man. He's about to be young college student to be. Just graduated high school, leading the Bible study group. Come on, Mr. Benton Harbor. He goes, and a journalist, I forgot about that, black journalist. He goes to the Krasel Art Fair. I got my camera. That's what journalists do, and that's what a lot of folks, period, do when they go to, festivals and such. Might take a click picture or so. You go, are doing your thing, click, 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 click. You get to these white men who have copyrighted artwork, which I think is important, copyrighted artwork, and what happens?
Yeah, I get there. The show was pretty much over. I got there pretty late in the day. I was busy earlier, and I'm taking photos, and I'm interviewing artists. I'm having a good time. Everybody else seems to be happy. I'm happy. I'm smiling. The whole there was a block party a few nights before that. I was making friends. I was connecting with people. I had a few of my friends with me. We're all having a good time. I get there that Sunday, and I get to a group of guys. There's one particular artist. I get up to his booth, and I'm zooming in. I'm getting ready to take a picture of him, and he was talking to someone, a patron, and he was on a step stool, and I'm getting ready to take a photo, and he looks down at me, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Stop." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm with the newspaper, just taking a few pictures, interviewing a few artists." And just having a good time. Like, then he's like, he gets all up in my face. He's like, well, no, you're not allowed to do that. Then I was like, well, Krasel said I can be down here. It's cool with them, and I'm not like I'm just I write for a paper. I'm not trying to do anything to your work. And then he's like, well, you go get someone from Krasel when you come back, and then we'll talk from there. And I'm like, okay. So I start to walk down. I mean, I take like an hour walking down the bluff, down the sidewalk, pretty much talking. I mean, it's not something huge in my mind. I'm just like, okay, I'll talk to some more artists. I'll take their pictures. I'll interview them. I'll get the story ready somehow. And I keep going down. Then about an hour later, I meet one of the volunteers with Krasel, and I'm like, hey, it's a guy down there saying one of the artists is saying I can't take a photo of his artwork, and I have I have credentials and everything, and I don't see what's wrong with me taking these photos. And then he's like, oh, well, yeah, you're good. Just tell him you're fine. We know who you are. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll make my way down there. Could you come with me? And we can talk to him. He's like, no, you got it. We all know who you are. Just let them know who you are, and they'll be fine. And then I'm like, again, I'm not rushing to get back there. It really wasn't a big thing to me. But I'm talking to other people. I end up meeting there was a lady at one of the booths, and she recognized who I was, and she's like, hey, like, Nick, Mr. Ben Harvey, how's it going? And she's like, how are you doing? And I'm helping her out. She was an older woman, so I'm helping her with her cell phone. I continue walking down the bluff, trying to get back to his booth. And then I'm talking to other people. And then I get to his booth, and before I was going to even say anything to him, someone stopped me in front of his booth and began to tell me about he was telling me about how he preaches at a prison, I think it was the Cass County and Barron County prisons and the jails, and he's telling me about his sermons, and he has a podcast that he preaches on and everything, and he goes into the prisons. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like I do something like this at my school, and I'm showing him pictures. He's showing me pictures. We're just connecting with one another. I'm having a good time, learning more about, which I love to do. I love hearing people's stories. So I'm loving it right now. And then I see the artist named Mr. Goog, Chris Goog. He comes out, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Goog, I talked to someone at Krasel, one of the volunteers. They said it's okay for me to take photos. It's no problem. Then, and we're under his booth at this time. Then he's like, no, like he's still, like, he's more amped up than what he was the first time. And then he's like, no, if you take a picture, it's going to get ugly. And I'm like, well, like what are you, like, what's going to happen? Pretty much. That's what I'm asking. He's getting in my face. I'm like, okay, like, this guy's all up in my face. We're chest to chest. I'm going to put my camera up, and I'm going to back away. I put my camera up. I backed away. I put my camera up. He slapped my camera down. He called me the N-word. Then he's yelling, saying I'm stealing his artwork. I haven't taken a picture yet. I just have my camera up like I'm about to take one, because I'm like, what is he gonna do to me if I take a picture at this point? That's what I'm thinking. And again, some more artists come circle around me. They're cussing at me. One of the bigger gentlemen in the video, he's like wearing red. He comes from his art booth. He gets behind me. He calls me the N-word. They're pushing up against me. They're circled around me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm under his booth right now, so I'm about to back away and get to the sidewalk. So I'm at the sidewalk, and I'm like circling around, trying to see, like, hey, if I look like I'm about to leave, are they going to follow me? And they're like trying to keep me contained. So I decided to, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm telling him. So I told him, like, hey, which I had actually seen the police chief not standing. He was in one of the patrol cars earlier, and I was like, hey, I saw the police chief earlier. You can call him, and you can walk down there and try and see if he's down there and bring him down here for this situation that you have. And he's like, no, you're gonna walk down there with me. I don't want you to steal my work. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna walk down there with you. You can bring him down here, but so he's like, okay, well, I'm about to call the police on you. And I'm like, okay, like I don't have a problem with that. So the police end up getting there. They're like, we know him. Like, even before the police even got there, the lady who I helped earlier, she was in the area. She was standing there. She was like, we know him. That's Mr. Ben Harbor. He writes for the newspaper. Like, stop messing with him. Like, they were not listening to him at all. They weren't listening to her at all. She's like yelling like on the top of her lungs, pretty much saying like, don't mess with him. And she's white, and she lives in our community. I see her every once in a while. She's a nice woman. And she's trying to tell them, stop, like, don't, like, we know him. You guys aren't from around our area, but still, like, stop. But the police end up showing up, and the police are pretty much saying, like we know Nick, he is a journalist. That's what the police chief said in the video. He is a journalist. 'Cause I have done interviews with him prior to the event before, and talking about racism, talking about different things that he's doing in the community as a police chief. I've seen him at fire trainings before for firefighting, and he was pretty much saying like he's not going to try and steal anything from you guys. And I'm pretty much sick. I'm like, I'm not even like I'm not even into like this kind of art. So, but they're still yelling at me. They're still pushing me in front of the police. When the police showed up, the police are pretty much just pulling me to the side saying, hey, like you're allowed to be here. And I'm like, yep, like I know I can take photos. We're in public. So the police are pretty much saying like, they weren't telling me to leave, but I felt like that's what they wanted to tell me, like, to pretty much be like to help the situation. So in my head, I'm like, well, I want to stay here. I haven't done anything wrong. I want to stay here. But I actually ended up trying to leave. So I try and leave. They're still yelling and cussing. Like I hear it. I end up getting stopped by the man who was talking about Bible study with me. He began to talk about like what would Jesus have done in that situation? Like Jesus would have left before he got to that, and different things. Pretty much just giving me what he would have done as a man of God, and I'm thinking, well, we're different, but again, I'm not gonna tell him he's wrong or anything. I'm just gonna listen to his side, and which I had no problem with doing. I didn't want to be. I'm not rude. Like if somebody's trying to have a conversation with me, I'm not gonna try and box him out and be rude to him. So I'm inviting him in and his input, and we end up talking more about the Bible and the Lord and the different things that he does in the community. And he's like, well, hey, can we get a picture? And then one of the artists who were circling around me, she started recording me again from the side of the other side of the street. And I'm like, all right, this lady's recording me. So I actually end up walking over there. I start posing. I'm like, hey, you want to take pictures of me? I don't have a problem with it. We're in public. I don't have a problem with you taking pictures of me or anything. And she's really mad that I'm like not being hurt by this. And she's like yelling at the police, like trying to call him over there, like, look at him, like look at what he's doing. He's doing all this and everything. And I ended up taking a picture with the gentleman who was talking about the Bible studies and everything. And I end up just pretty much, they start yelling and cussing at me again and trying to get in my face. The police are telling them like, stop, you guys, he's not doing anything. in the video, you can see the police chief actually walking with me a few steps away from them, from the artist, saying like, like we know they're just being racist and like they're wrong. They're in the wrong. They're just being racist. You're black and they're yelling and cussing at you. They're racist. And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I'm just gonna head out. I'm gonna leave. There's no point in me just staying here. So I end up leaving. So, and I tried to get most of it. I didn't think I should have it didn't cross my mind to start recording earlier, but I picked up the few snippets that I got from that. So, yeah.
Captivated once again, Mr. Benton Harbor, Nicholas Gunn. That is crafty, young man. At 18, he hadn't even been 18 that long. I would have never concocted a scheme like that. I'm going to go to the art festival. I'm going to give them the old fake. I'm going to pose as a journalist, but I'm really an incognito art thief. That is amazing. Like, wow. I've never even talked to an art thief. Nick Gunn, put that on my resume. Like, I'm a fire cadet. I host a Bible study. I'm a journalist. I am Mr. Benton Harbor and an incognito art thief. Wow. Who even knows a black art thief?
Yeah. Right.
Come on. Before we nap, some folks dialed in with a quick question. Gonna hog all your time, but is one, just because of something this might seem for listeners seem like a goofy question. What does this have to do with anything? You'll have to follow for a moment. Does the name Timothy McVeigh, is that significant to you at all?
Yeah, I've heard that Timothy McVeigh before.
Oklahoma City bombing before your time. Like I said, us fogies remember that. Yeah. 1995. Ancient history.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know how he connects to your state, Michigan?
No, I don't.
No penalty there. Still learning myself. Man, this is when I talk about local history. Man, oh man, I wanted to go to the University of Michigan. Like, oh man, it was going to be me, Charles Woodson. Like, I was going to be there with all the alums. Like, woo, hail to the victors. I am so glad I did not. Number one, it is so cold up there. I do not do cold weather well at all. Like, at all. I think 60 degrees is cold, so I would die if I was in Michigan, like, at all. Two, oh my God. Like, I didn't know that. If you had asked me that question, like, hey, you love Michigan so much, and Charles Woodson and yum, do you know Timothy McVeigh's connection to Michigan? I'm like, no. Even if you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have said the same thing. No. Ooh. Do you remember all that to do in your state, the folks, the white people, they were going to kidnap and lynch Governor Gretchen Whitmer because they were upset about the COVID regulations? You remember all of that?
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. There is a long history of armed white racists in your state. Very long. Like all of that with Timothy McVeigh, long tradition. Like if I was a Michigan native, I was born there, like, oh yeah, like we will have to learn all about that because wow. And that in connection with the sundown towns that are all throughout the state of Michigan, like, oh my. Now, coming back to this incident, did you think at any time any of these white people could have been armed?
Yeah, I thought that, when they're trying to like get more physical, when they were like, I never seen somebody who wanted to. I've never been in like an altercation where someone was wanting me to like try and fight them. Like I didn't know what to do. I'm like what do they have something like to want to try and push up on me like this and want me a reaction out of me? So I'm like, I'm backing up. I'm being cautious. Like, hey, like what's going on? So yeah, I mean, kinda, yeah. I was thinking like they probably had a weapon of some sort.
Brilliant young man, Nicholas Gunn. Guess you got to be brilliant if you're going to be an art thief. I mean, hey, Michigan State is an open carry state, so yeah, that even going back to that Timothy McVeigh question, see, that would be that's something I've been encouraging people to think about, you know, in general. Washington State, where I am, also open carry. So, and I'm so glad that you shared that detail. When you're out in public and you have strangers who are looking to escalate a situation, I think you said, I'm trying to leave. I didn't, you know, who are you talking to? You don't call me a nigger. What? Let's throw that. You didn't say that? I'm trying to leave. They're trying to circle and block me from exiting. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
That sort of thing, I got to get up in your face and chest bump you. Even to have a white woman, I thought that was so important as well. A white woman. I'm trying to leave. I'm talking to somebody else not even connected with you. You were upset. You thought, I'm an art thief. All right, so I'm not taking pictures. I'm gone. I didn't even get a picture of your work. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You won't even just let me live. Take pictures. Oh, I got you on camera. Look at you. And then, look, officer, look. He's posing. Look at him. He's posing for my camera. Look at him. Arrest him right now. Yeah. Who does that? I've been saying that this week. Who even thinks like that? And with the escalation, if I was really upset about the pictures, that's done. I put my camera away. What's going on? And then I've been saying for 13 years, Voltron effect. Did these people know? I mean, I'm asking you to guess. If you don't know, that's totally cool. But I mean, I thought you said some folks, other vendors, other people, they ended up hopping in and joining, calling you nigger and all this. Did they know each other or?
I don't think so. I mean, like, they walked from the other, like, booth, and they're, like, from across the sidewalk, and they walked over, like, got up in my face, because they seen the other artists trying to bring a rise to what was happening, me taking photos. And, I mean, they followed his call, and they're all just yelling at me and cussing at me, calling me the N-word, joining in on them. Even the wife of the bigger guy who called me the N-word, she's like saying, "You think you're entitled? This is why we need Trump back." And I'm like, when she said that, I was like, what? Like, what does Trump have to do with anything that is happening right now in this moment for you to say I'm entitled and we need Trump back because you think you're entitled? And I'm like, I mean, what if I was a Trump supporter or something? Like, you don't know that he doesn't have anything to do with the situation, but she's yelling that, saying I'm entitled, and yeah, it was wild.
This has got to be in the report. I mean, wow. Did you talk with Ms. Pilgrim about all this?
Yeah, I did.
It's got to be in the report, man. I mean, Oh my God, how could it not crazy? That's why I said before, words are so critical. It's not crazy that it happened at this moment. All of that. How did we are in Michigan. It's 2022. The presidential election is 2 years away. It's the middle of the summertime. What does this have to do, entitled art thieving nigger? What? That's why we need to get Trump back. What? What? I don't even know where to begin. What? I'm just trying to leave. How about that? Can I just leave? And then I try to leave. the religion of white supremacy, what would Jesus have done? Jesus would have left before all this trouble started. Like, what? Time out even right there. Like, wait a minute. Now, again, I'm trying to leave. Nobody is, hey, man, Mr. Benton Harbor, let me get you to safety. Let me get a little sanctuary. Like, you are a cool dude. You are not an art thief unless you got us fooled. Let me get you to safety. Here's a bottle of water. Like, that was crazy, wasn't it? But you're good. No. What would Jesus have done? I think Jesus would have left before you did, starting all that trouble. Like, what? Before I even get into the, like, for real, my understanding of Jesus was that this guy was like a troublemaker, like the biggest troublemaker in the whole book. Like, maybe you do Bible study. Is that, maybe, am I lying about the work of Jesus?
No.
Maybe I missed a few. I need to go to Mr. Gunn's Bible study group and make sure. But I thought that was what I read. This guy, that's why they wouldn't have hung him, maybe, if he had just went, all right, you know what, pilot, I'm going to get on out of here. Looks like it's going to be trouble. I will catch you all later. Let us get it. I don't think that's how all of this went down, but, you know. He is the Bible study, Mr. Gunn, not Gus. We did have a few folks who dialed. Matter of fact, before I get our caller that dialed in, now that you've had some time to reflect on this, old art thief, what would, if anything at all, would you do differently? If you had to do the whole art festival all over again, would you do exactly the same, or would you make any adjustments to what you did that day?
I wouldn't have went there.
Wow.
To be honest. Yeah. I mean, again, I was one of the only 3 black people there, so it shows that they don't want us there, and I probably wouldn't have showed up. So if I knew that would have happened. So, yeah.
Wow. I was not expecting that response. I was expecting maybe an adjustment here or there, or, you know, maybe I would have called the police sooner or whatever, but wow. Okay. Well, logical. I understand. I try to avoid places where black people are not wanted, and especially racially restricted regions, just because there's so many reports, not just in St. Joseph, but all over the U.S., there's so many reports of young, intelligent, promising people like yourself going to these racially restricted regions, and then sometimes they end up dying, like Eric McGinnis under suspicious circumstances, and then you have a sloppy investigation like Eric McGinnis that is, we don't know what happened, it's an accident, and this sort of thing, where it's like, man, like at least, or it sounds like at least with this case, your family, they get A+. Everybody said they did as much as they could. Don't go to St. Joe. It's dangerous over there. Your dad, he couldn't have been you could end up in the river. Yeah. A+ entire. Do you agree? Your family gets an A+ for trying to warn you?
Yeah.
A+ to the Gunn family. Like, we still got to do better, but man, and we just talked about it the day that we heard the report of how you were mistreated out there. We had black people who said the same thing. They tried to tell their family members. They tried to warn them. It went totally ignored. Thankfully, nothing fatal happened, but man, that is, we got to do better. A+ to the Gunn family. Victim of New Jersey, did you have a question for Mr. Nicholas Gunn, Mr. Benton Harbor, art thief on the sly? Victim in New Jersey.
Hey, how you doing? Nice, good interview. I think I'm like 20, I may be 20 years plus your senior, you know, so I mean, I applaud your courage. So my question would be, are you familiar with Renisha McBride?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. She's from, it happened in Michigan. She was in a car accident in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. And she went to knock on the door for help. White man opened the door without warning, shot her in the face.
Oh, wow.
That story is you familiar with you? Wow. That happened in your home state. Yeah. Okay. Also, so if roles was reversed, do you think the police would have been more understanding if you were the aggressor?
No, I don't. I know if I was an 18-year-old white girl, I would have probably, and I was the aggressor in this situation, I would have probably been shot, right on the spot.
Okay.
I know that for sure.
Right. Okay, so you definitely know that. So so what do you think? Do you think that's would you categorize that as like power? The fact that those white people had the power to just harm you, and if nobody was able to be there to be a witness to give your version of the story, like, do you believe that they could have got away with actually harming that day?
I think they could have. I mean, again, the police weren't trying to step in the way of them from pushing me. They were just saying hey, stop. They weren't hey, they didn't grab the aggressors and say stop now or we're gonna arrest you. It was pretty much the guy still following me around. They're cussing at me still. They're putting their hands on me in front of the police. They're not listening to the officer. So yeah, I think if they were, I think I'm blessed to have decided to walk away and leave. But I think if the police have probably not known me, as if the chief if we haven't never met before or something, if I was wearing something, my pants were probably sagging, or if I didn't have a collared shirt on, and I think that, the roles could have been changed if I didn't have on. If I had on tennis shoes, and if I started cussing back, it's so much that could have went into the situation. So, yeah, I don't think I was protected.
Right. Right. So in that situation, would you define that as it relates to the white people? Were they showing prejudice, or was they showing power? In that particular moment.
Were they showing prejudice, or?
Do you think they were showing prejudice, or was they showing power at that moment?
Oh, prejudice, for sure. I think what they're doing was prejudice. It was wrong what they're doing. But for the police as law enforcement, who had power at that moment, I think they showed them with the power. The police, the law enforcement officers, made it seem like they were powerful, and pretty much made me leave. If the police were to be like, hey, you guys, to the other people that they needed to leave instead, but I guess in that situation, the law enforcement sided more towards the artist.
Okay. One more question, Gus. That one black official that's in town. Have you and him talked about racism, white supremacy, And in a follow-up of that question, do you think that he's allowed to exist because he may not talk about racism, white supremacy? Those are the two questions.
Yeah, I have talked about racism with him before. Commissioner Rayante Bell, he was born in Benton Harbor. He's lived in the city of Benton Harbor. He knows about the stereotypes and the different things that we hear about Black people coming over to St. Joseph, and he's well aware. We've talked about it multiple times. Recently, he began to tell me a story about how a colleague who was running for state representative at the time, Chokwe Pitchford, and another state representative. They're canvassing in a predominantly white neighborhood, and in St. Joseph, they're canvassing, knocking on doors. The police had ended up getting a call saying 3 Black men are breaking in homes, and he was stopped by the police. 3 Black men wearing suits was stopped by the police and was brought to their attention that people were calling in saying that they were breaking in homes. Actually a day before the Krasel event, I was with Commissioner Bell, and I was stopped in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I was stopped by a police officer saying that what I was doing I wasn't allowed to, which was what I was doing was legal. I was doing nothing wrong, and when I was able to meet back up with Commissioner Bell, and he was like, "Yeah, that cop that stopped you was wrong," and pretty much saying like, "Hey, the same time last year, me and 3 of your Black leaders in this area was stopped and mistreated, and that's wrong. We need to do something about that." So, and he has a group that is working on race relations in this area, and I think it really starts with a conversation. We need to push conversations on a wide scale in our community. And I've been telling people that I want to do a large event in St. Joseph to talk about racism, or open discussion about racism, open to everyone in our community in St. Joseph and Benton Harbor. Invite everyone and talk about the things that are happening in our community and bring people together, which what I think we need.
Context of white supremacy. I want to see if we can get to some of our other callers. Much obliged, our caller in New Jersey. Just the importance of words, kind of the same way that I said about it's not crazy that this incident happened at this moment. Definitely not a coincidence, not crazy. What we're talking about, this is not race relations. If we're talking about, and in every aspect of it, if the police, they see Mr. Benton Harbor with journalist credentials being physically assaulted, verbally terrorized, and they ask you to leave, that is not race relations. That is white supremacy, racism. That is a power dynamic. I think that's so important because that word race relations is all throughout sundown towns. Like, it has so much great information, but I mean, really, if we're talking about the power, white people to mysteriously raise the drawbridge to keep Black people out, that is not race relations. That is white power to dominate and mistreat non-white people. And get to the callers. Let's see. I got confused about the order, so Bay Area Mom has a child about your age. Did you have a question for our young scholar, Mr. Nicholas Gunn? Bay Area Mom.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Greetings to you and Mr. Dunn. You're so handsome, and I'm saying this in a mom voice. And heavily melanated. So I'm wondering, when I read about the incident you had with at the fair, or that little show, everyone there saw you. Everyone. He's an underwear. I guess he did underwear art. So I'm wondering, just after knowing so much about him, do you think he just didn't want you taking pictures and he just made up all the other stuff? Because I'm reading what you said, and I'm reading what he said, which was the total opposite of what you stated. Do you think he just didn't want your camera taking his pictures, and then whatever they think about young black males and how you look, and he's so deep, he does underwear,
underwater
art. So that's my question, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, the other journalists who were after the incident, who came to me for interviews, they're like, Nick, we were like there like a few hours before you showed up. We got footage of his actual art standing right where you were just standing in this video. We got footage of it, and they're like, I mean, I've been out in the community since then. People coming up to me saying, hey, we bought some of his artwork. We burnt it. Like, we don't want any of that art in our home. We don't want any of it. Again, the journalists who they're telling me, I saw one of the journalists who works for a different company. He told me, like, Nick, like, I saw you there. Like, we stopped and talked for a minute. He was telling me that his company was there earlier that day, and to see him the next day in an interview saying like Nick, like we were there, we all got coverage. But again, I'm one of the only this is the only African American ran newspaper in our area. So again, I think it was because I was black. It was white news companies there that weren't attacked, that weren't cussed at, that weren't pushed against, and they got their footage and they were able to leave safely without any police being called on them. And they got what they needed. They got the footage and everything. One of the companies actually showed the snippet that they had in the story, that when they were reporting on me, they showed a snippet of footage that they had in front of his booth. So yeah, I think it was definitely racially motivated.
Context of white supremacy. Much obliged, Bay Area mom. Before we get to Irie in Louisiana, if I give out one more suggestion. So I've suggested the 2 books, what have you, which he said he was already familiar with the other side of the river. I think you should contact the author Alex Kolowitz, might be mispronouncing his name, to have him as a part of your project. Like, I'm sure if you email him, because I suspect if he follows the news or what have you, he probably knows about what happened to you. If he doesn't, you could just send him the event about what happened to you and tell him, hey, this inspired me to research and learn more about this town. We're doing this project at the same time. It'd be great to have your input. Like, I'm sure, like, who wouldn't want to help out some young college students? Like, yeah, read the book and see if his email is right online. I'll send you his webpage. Drop him an email. Tell him about the project that you all are doing, and I'm sure he would make, time for you all in some way, whether you all do email correspondence or Zoom or whatever. But, like, yeah, the time is right and exact, young man. Let's see. Our caller, Irie in Louisiana, did you have a question for Mr. Gunn?
Okay. Thanks for the show, Gus. And to the guests, thanks for joining us. I think I have like 3 questions for you. I'm trying to remember. So the first one, have you ever heard of such a thing as a lynch mob? before?
Yeah, I think I've heard of a lynch mob before.
Okay. So I guess a second part to the first question. Did the thought of a lynch mob forming or having been formed come into your consciousness at any time?
Wait, could you repeat that? Has I been encountered with the lynch mob before?
Did you, during your encounter in St. Joseph at the festival, did it occur to you that you were actually in the midst, of a lynch mob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm being pushed up against, called the N-word, getting yelled at. I mean, I thought I was gonna be hurt at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I got 4 questions. I got one more. I was wondering too, do you desire integration with white people? I'm not trying to say that you do or don't. I'm just wondering if that's something you think is of constructive value.
Do I desire? I don't think. I mean, if I encounter anyone, I try and be as nice to them and make sure that they feel welcome. Anybody I encounter, I would want them to say like, "Hey, this young man that I met today was a nice young man. He treated me well. He treated me with respect." And I don't go out of my way to meet like different people outside of my race. Berrien Springs High School is one of the most diverse schools in Michigan. Andrews University is the most diverse university in the world, I believe. Actually, I think over 32 nations are being represented in that area, and they in the same town of Berrien Springs. And I mean, I see different races every single day, different walks of life, different people from different countries, from different continents. And I just think that it's beautiful that I can be able to meet somebody who was born in a different place, who has a different perspective of life, and they live in the area I grew up in. I get to show them around the area that I love, and I mean, I love doing that, and I love having fun with people, and I like documenting it to show other people that you can look different and you can have fun with somebody who isn't the same as you, who doesn't look the same as you, who thinks differently, who eats different foods as you, who worships different than you. Some of them are Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, and I just think it's beautiful that we all can be extremely different and still have a love for one another.
Okay. Well, just so you know, when I mention integration, I meant specifically with people who classify themselves as white. But I hear you. I understand. In a just world, that's what it would be. So the last 2 questions is, are you familiar with the Whirlpool Corporation?
Yep. Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. So the second thing is, are you familiar with Whirlpool and their political, what they've done politically in Benton Harbor, and their, basically them using their power to have Reverend Pinckney arrested? Have you heard of Reverend Pinckney?
Oh yeah, I've been able to meet Reverend Pinckney multiple times. He's a nice person.
Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead. You were about to say something?
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know if it's strictly Whirlpool has tried to demonize him or not. I don't have like facts with that. Throughout our community of Benton Harbor, it is widely publicized. I don't have facts, but it is widely publicized that Whirlpool is not for Benton Harbor. But again, I don't know facts. But yeah, I do hear a lot of African American people in our community talk down upon Whirlpool. Yeah.
So just so you know, because I don't want to take too much time, but to the host's point about knowing local history, and I'll tell you because you're a non-white male, and I want you to have as much information to go forward with to research. Whirlpool Corporation has been attempting for at least the past 6-7 years to turn Benton Harbor into a golf course resort. And one of the oppositional proponents in your community has been Reverend Edward Pinkney. He was accused and convicted of some type of voter registration fraud, which that conviction was overturned, but he still ended up, serving almost 2 years. But the issue is, which is most important, the people that you cross the bridge with to see their artwork, St. Joseph, Whirlpool, if they have their way, they're going to take over Benton Harbor, turn it into that golf course resort, and make it a part of St. Joseph. But do your due diligence, young man. So the people that are across that bridge are your declared enemy, and I'll leave my line. Thank you.
I know some parts of Benton Harbor, we do have a golf course. I forget, Harbor Shores Golf Course. They do the senior PGA down there and everything. Again, it's not full of people who live in our community. And I was actually down there covering that event, and again, it's in our community. It's not showing what our community is about. But I don't know. I've heard different things about Whirlpool trying to take land in Benton Harbor. But again, I don't know if it's the truth or not. And yeah.
Much obliged, Irie in Louisiana. Let's see, Helen in New York. Did you have a question for Nicholas Gunn? Helen in New York.
Peaceful greetings to Mr. Renegade and to Mr. Gunn. I have a few questions. You said that you interviewed the white police chief a few times about racism, white supremacy, or racism. Did he give you a definition?
No, he didn't.
What did he explain to you about racism in the interview?
He talked about the different boards and committees that the city has to try and bring the community together throughout with racism and trying to pretty much just put an end to that stigma in the city of St. Joseph. That was pretty much the talk that we were able to have.
Where might I be able to find this article?
The article. Well, actually, it'll be in. I don't know when it'll be published, but it'll be either with the Moody on the Market. I wrote a bio about the police chief of the city of St. Joseph, and it'll be coming out pretty soon. But I do look for
white police chief. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying I don't know.
Go ahead, continue.
Coming out.
Okay, I'll look forward to it too. Do you suspect the white police chief of being a racist?
No, I don't suspect him. He talked a lot about how he wants more African American people to be a part of their I mean, he's reached out to me to try and join their public safety department. I think he's a nice person, and I think I've seen him try to reach out to African Americans to get them a part of their department. I don't think he's a racist at all.
Have you ever read Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison?
Have I read what?
Have you ever read a book by Ralph Ellison called Invisible Man?
No, I haven't.
Last question and one book suggestion. That person, the volunteer at Crazel, the one that you tried to get to come with you to say, hey, I'm okay, or whatever, to the art person. He said, nah, you're all right. Was that person white or non-white?
Yeah, he was. He was white.
He was white? My book suggestion to you is The ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cresswell. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Context of white supremacy. Do you know if they're pressing charges on Mr. Goog or any of the other whites who terrorized you?
Yeah, I know that we did a police report a few weeks ago. They told me that it would have been out the end of the week, of that week, but it's been 3 weeks now, and I haven't heard anything back from them yet.
So many different components of racism, white supremacy. Now, see, that's another one. Now, if this had been something different, a white person with credentials out taking pictures, and old Nicholas Gunn shoving them, calling them names, cursing at them, what are you doing? Looking at my artwork, all that. Ooh-wee. Now, one, I think we already said, man, he could have been shot and killed right there as soon as the police come. Like, what? You shoving white people around? What's going on? Much less, even if that doesn't happen, he doesn't get shot. Do we think that this is going to be, we'll get to this when we'll get to it. Let a few weeks go by. Like, what's the big deal? We're in no rush to write all this up to prosecute old Nicholas Gunn for his assaulting white people out of a public festival. Like, really? I would definitely make sure to follow up, and I would even ask, like, hey, if they say that they're serious about racism, like, so is this the standard procedure? If someone is being accosted in public, you ask the person who is being victimized to vacate, as opposed to directing your attention to stopping the aggressors. Is that the way officers are trained in the St. Joseph area? Like, questions, lots of, right in the project. Oh, it's beautiful timing. Beautiful timing. Making sure I didn't miss any of the important questions. What your family? I'm sure they've been super supportive, but man, after all of this and your work and everything, like, what did your dad say after all of this happened?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of leaders in my community, my dad pretty much told me, like, hey, we've gone over this. We told you not to go there. Different, like, my chairman for the Mr. Ben Harbor event, he was like, hey, we always tell you to let everybody know where you're going, especially if you're going across the bridge. Like, you need to let us know what you're doing and everything. So yeah, it was pretty much like I told you so kind of thing. But they're happy that I was safe and I was okay. And I've been getting a lot of messages from people in the community in support, knowing that this doesn't define who I am. Even the mayor of St. Joseph, we were able to meet a few weeks before this happened, and she was telling me that how nice I was to her and how she got to learn all these different things that I do, and she was so impressed. Yeah, so it was bittersweet. But yeah, it was, yeah.
Context of white supremacy, our guest, Mr. Nicholas Gunn. We have retired firefighter in Florida speaking with our young fire cadet and incognito art thief, Nicholas Gunn. Retired firefighter, did you have a question?
Yes, I came in on the late part of the program, but I think I have enough to ask the guest a question. First of all, it's my understanding that you are a reporter, and you were going under the assumption or the privilege of being able to report something, and you were assaulted by a lot of white people. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, has that experience altered your suspicion of white people, especially white people in a large number, where there's very few or no non-white people in that environment, and you would have a healthy amount of suspicion that something wrong may happen to you? Do you think that's altered in that way?
Yeah, I think it has altered what I would have wanted my experience to be. Pretty much with growing up in this area, this has never happened to me, and to be honest, I've seen stuff like this happen in the news, and I'm like, nah, like this wouldn't happen in my community, and for this to happen to me, and it was crazy. I was that first week, I didn't even want to take pictures anymore. Like, again, like I saw one news outlet that I take pictures every farmers market in the city of Benton Harbor. I go out and report. I complete that week. I didn't do any photography. I'm trying to get more back into it. I haven't been taking pictures as I used to after this has happened, but I'm trying to still get more into the hang of things.
Well, my suggestion, I can't make a demand or anything, but my suggestion is you keep if that's something that you like to do, and you may have a gift for doing it, keep doing it. If anything is constructive from your experience, is what you've already reported to me, that you have it's altered your suspicion of white people in a similar type of environment, to be aware of that, and also at the same time, because you have influence over others, share that information with as many people as you possibly can. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. So the festival comes around this time next year. Are you going to go and do photographs, or are you going to wait and think?
I will wait and think. And again, I want to make this something that we could grow from, like having racial talks, things to interverse with the community. Let's bring more Black people from Benton Harbor into St. Joe for this event. No way that should there be. Before I got into the event, this is my first time ever going, and I'm talking to one of the volunteers who's signing me in, and I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, I've never been here before. Like, how many people usually come? She's like, yeah, 15,000 people come up from all over. over the world, and I'm like really? Like, and I'm talking to other people, and they're like, oh yeah, this is big, and I'm like, okay. So I'm looking around, and I'm like, I'm the only black person here. I'm like, oh wow, like, and it's 15,000 people come here, and I'm the only black person here, and I'm like, why isn't there other black people in our community? When I go to the Harbor Shores, the senior PGA golf course, why isn't there more African Americans here? This is happening in our community. But I mean, it shows that they're not reaching out to black people. They don't want us. They don't want us to be there. But I want us to be out there. I want us to represent our city, our Benton Harbor, and let them know that we're here. We're here to stay. Rather, who wants us to be there? We're gonna be there, and we're gonna show that we can have fun at these events that are in our community. So yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking they got those drawbridges now. I read what was on James Lowen's webpage. He talked about sometimes they raise the drawbridges, keep the black people out. You talked about apparently they did the same thing sometime recently on July 4th. We don't want the niggers to come in and ruin our fireworks celebration, or we don't want them to partake in it. Man, they also, if they really do not want black people, niggers, us, in St. Joe for the art festival or anything else, they could let a handful of us get on that side, raise the drawbridge. We told you we didn't want you over here. Now we're going to show you how many firearms we have. We told you not to come. They could do that too. Eric McGinnis, lots of black. You said you went to the play, right? You said that earlier in the program. Yep. You went to the play about Eric McGinnis and these other black males. They said that in the report. They said African Americans who died suspiciously in St. Joseph or were found in the river. It was all black males. Eric McGinnis, Timothy Allen, black male privilege. But yeah, they could do it the other way. Just raise the bridge and, yeah, like I said, Timothy McVeigh, the same white people who were going to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, their cousins and relatives, probably right there in St. Joe. Anywho, man, it has been a hoot. I tell what, the moment we listen to reports on racism like every week, every Saturday. The moment that I heard your report, I would like to talk to this gentleman. Like, wow. The family warned him, and he said, oh, I hate that, especially when it's like your parents or somebody like, I told you, I tried to tell you, I told you not to call me. It's like, oh, I know. Like, yeah. But glad he said he got lots of support and lots of people, we are there and all the rest, but let us know if you're going to be, like, man, that is so common. I don't know what do you think your parent, I guess this will be last one. Sorry for pestering you, but do you think your parents, your dad, any other relatives or what have you, Reverend Pinckney, do you think they could have said something to you or articulated something to you that would have made you more suspicious, maybe even made you not attend this event, or do you think it's something you had to experience, you had to live it to get this lesson?
Yeah. It's sad that it happened, but I still want to be able to help in this community, and I still want to be able to be someone who people can look at and show that we can bring our communities together. With Reverend Pinckney, I think that he would want to be a help. I mean, he's like a true activist in our community who helps out with all the different situations with the lead water. You've heard about the lead water in the city of Benton Harbor, the lead water crisis. He's on the ground doing great work. I was able to to help out at one of his lead water, with the water bottle handouts, and he's a true great citizen in our community and activist.
As are you, journalist and fire cadet and all the rest of it. My goodness, working on this project, you, Miss Danielle Pilgrim, man, I'm super proud, super impressed. Wowee, I just expect tremendous things over the next few decades for you. You even got a reading list, but you're a young scholar, so you're going academic environment. Hopefully it'll add to your project. The reading list, the listener, she said, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's The ISIS Papers, The Other Side of the River, which you said you were already familiar with, and then James Lowen's Sundown Towns, which is not the best title, and he does use the term race relations, which is really terrible. We're talking about white power, system of white supremacy, but those 3 books should put you on a really great start to having a much better understanding to why the event at the Krazel Festival happened, and even some great information for your project on St. Joe and Benton Harbor. But man, oh man, it has been just a real pleasure to chat it up with you this evening. We will definitely keep an eye, when you get the project done, let us know. We would love to read, check it out. If it's something we can view, send us an email, and we will be there to support you and Danielle Pilgrim's effort, however long it takes. You have an audience waiting to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your time, Mr. Nicholas Gunn. Check out Nick Eats YouTube channel, his vlog. We appreciate it so much, hearing a lot more information about what happened to you, sir. Sorry under these circumstances, but wow, it has been a treat to chat it up with you this evening. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and again, send us the information when your project is complete.
Will do. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Much obliged, sir. Take excellent care. Nicholas Gunn, our guest this evening. Context of white supremacy. Wow. I'm so glad we were able to get him on the program, because so many times that's not the case, where we have victims of racism, myself included, where it's nobody, warned us, nobody said anything, we didn't get information. He said everybody, all the folks who care about him told him, and, which that happens frequently. Well, I'm not going to say frequently, because I don't hear too many folks say everybody told me. Did you hear that? He didn't say I had a no-count black father who ran off with 15 white women and was selling crack cocaine, and that's not what he said. He said, my black attempted father told me, ooh, you don't want to be doing that. Running over there talking about racism in St. Joe. Man, people found out what you're doing, you could end up in the river. That is not a metaphor. That is Eric McGinnis, Timothy Allen. What did the book we just have on Monday? Black Bodies in the River. And then black father still there to say, I told you, don't go over to St. Joe. I'm so glad you're still here. I'm glad you're alive. I told you. We told you not to go to St. Joe. That is the magnitude. We've had, Dick Gregory said that, we have a long list of black pen. I didn't just say it. Dick Gregory. 2 times he got mentioned on the program this week, where he said all the work that he did, and pictures that he could have shown with him and Dr. King and all these events and Freedom Summer and everything else, and wrote a book about COINTELPRO and Dr. King's assassination and all of this. And his children, Dad is crazy. What? These white people are all right. He's crazy. All that militant, radical Negro. What? I'm Dick Gregory. That is what domination looks like. And we hear that all the time. Again, I have to stop saying that like, man, Nicholas Gunn, that is exceptional. We do not hear that all the time. Where someone says, everyone in the family tried to talk to you about racism. That is the enormity of the problem. We'll have to think on that for a second. We will take a break if folks have thoughts on what they heard. We'll be right back. Give a quick second for folks to share. I'm so proud we did not have fisticuffs or brawls. We have that white guests only rule for a reason. And we didn't have any name calling or brawling. I thought it was constructive. People asked their questions. We didn't have speechifying. Like, woo, maybe even something to learn. Yeah, I'll say something about that on the other side of the break. So we'll take a quick break. And then if folks have thoughts on what they heard, we will share quickly and then get ready for the book club tomorrow. Context of white supremacy.
I would love to see the FBI look into these cases.
For months, calls for an FBI investigation.
I think that the state police, the FBI, the CIA, whoever, needs to come in and investigate.
With at least 6 mysterious deaths involving African Americans from Benton Harbor, family, friends, community leaders, all asking for more to be done.
Do you think the FBI should get involved?
Yes, I do.
You don't think that investigators here are doing what they need?
No, I don't.
It turns out the FBI was already involved in a couple of the cases. St. Joseph Interim Director of Public Safety, Steve Neubecker, made that point clear.
The 2 cases that we're talking about today, the Eric McGinnis case and the Timothy Allen case, the FBI was involved in both those investigations.
Police reports show the FBI assisted in the search for Timothy Bulldog Allen in 2011, and the Department of Justice reviewed the case of Eric McGinnis from 1991.
The Eric McGinnis case, a task force was formed involving the agencies of the FBI, the state police, and all local jurisdictions.
While it's not clear how any of these people ended up in the water, public officials from across the county all agree on one thing.
Do you think the FBI should take a look at these cases?
I don't think it'll fall under purview.
Do you think the FBI should come in here and take a look at all this?
We don't have any problem with any outside agency coming in here, but I don't know if the FBI would take on something where there's no evidence. They got to understand that it was thoroughly investigated, reviewed by the prosecutor's office, and there was no signs of foul play.
We wanted to speak with the prosecutor about it as well, so we reached out to prosecuting attorney Mike Sepik about these cases, and despite cooperation from every single local law enforcement agency, he refused to be a part of our story. But what we can tell you is every one of those cases goes to his office in the courthouse right here. He can then decide if the case is closed or if it's sent back for more investigating. The FBI was similarly quiet. Through our multiple inquiries, we received a short email saying in part, quote, "It's the policy of our office, actually the whole of the FBI, to neither confirm or deny the existence of an investigation."
Just being a former detective, kind of have a saying, where there's smoke, there's fire.
While Benton Harbor's Director of Public Safety doesn't think the FBI should get involved, he's not saying nothing should be done.
The volume of the numbers, I've been here 20 years, it just kind of makes you wonder. Without looking, we won't know if there's something or not.
McGinnis says even some of the cases that were technically solved may warrant another look.
Even with an accidental death, that still is kind of inconclusive, because to be conclusive, it seemed like there would be some type of witness that says, I saw so-and-so fall in. Not saying there is anything out there for sure, but I'd love to be at a point where we get resources to be able to kind of revisit some things and take a look with fresh eyes.
And while it's no promise to reopen any case or get the FBI involved, it's at least hope for some of these families that more may be done.
I hope that they do it in time where nobody else can have to worry about having this feeling that me and the other families have had with losing their family members to this circumstance.
Context of white supremacy, at least with the Eric McGinnis case, like this year, within the last, I think 3-4 months, that case was reopened with a witness who said Eric McGinnis, black teenager, was actually put, or kicked rather, into the water. And even in the book, The Other Side of the River, which I just became aware of, I hadn't read myself, but I am going to see if we can get the author on the program, then we can chat it up and I will read. But in that book, there is a portion where the white author speaks to a witness, or I think there was someone involved with the investigation, and they said, just based on the evidence, they think, because this is cold water, with the Eric McGinnis case specifically, the basic details, and I might be inaccurate in some places, but investigate, strive for accuracy. Unless I'm in error, this is a black teenager. This happened in 1991. Allegedly, he went into a vehicle and stole like a little bit less than $50. The white owner of the vehicle allegedly chased him. People saw this. Now, I mean, you can even think about that. And based on what you just heard, and I think this is corroborated, I think this is part of the story, because an off-duty enforcement officer allegedly saw this chase, called the police, but they did not join the chase of Mr. or young McGinnis. But based on what you heard today, in terms of a black male being attacked, he wasn't even being chased. This was an active chase with Mr. Gunn, and the people joined in. What, nigger? What? They didn't even know him. In this one, an enforcement officer sees this, calls it in. He's being chased. Witness comes forward and says that they see Mr. or Eric McGinnis being chased by a group of whites. And then he gets kicked into the water. But in the book, The Other Side of the River, the white author writes that one of the people who looked at the evidence said, hey, this is cold water, much like here in Seattle, Washington. If let's say the police are chasing you, right? That's one of the theories, that he jumped in the water and drowned accidentally because he was being chased because he broke into this car. The police were chasing him, or the car owner were chasing him, so he was trying to flee for his life to get back to Benton Harbor. Okay, if you were going to do that, this water is really cold. Anybody, if that's what you were going to do, I'm at least going to kick off my shoes. I mean, I think anybody, if you tried to swim, that would be the minimum. And maybe some of my other clothes. He has his shoes on. Now, they said his belt buckle was undone a little bit. Now, some of the folks who looked at the evidence, they said it's a lot of ways that can happen. Sometimes when they're trying to get the body out, the belt buckling or the clothes gets unbuckled or whatever, or loosened. Sometimes just even being in the water for a period of time, that can happen just with the current and what have you. But they said, hey, if this were a case where he fell in the water, this water is so cold, the natural human response would be, let me try to get back out of the water where I fell in at. That's where he would drown at. That would be what it is. That's apparently not what this was. It would not be, let me, take my clothes off. It would be, ooh, this water is super cold. Let me see if I can get out. Got to be a point where I can get out of this water. Michigan, got to be freezing. At any rate, so this case was reopened just within weeks of what happened at the Krazel Art Fair Festival. The Eric McGinnis case, more than 30 years at this point, and no statute of limitations on murder. We know that with Carol and Brian Donham. Anyway, that I'm reading more important, and learning, knowing local history, all of that, super important. One thing I will say, the program that we had on Monday, Black Bodies in the River, I talked about the failure to mention COINTELPRO. I said Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, her book was mentioned today at page 1 of her book. Now that's even something to think about. All the people that name drop Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and her book is important and you got to read the ISIS papers and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Page 1. And I think it's even before she mentions Neely Fuller Jr.'s book. Now I have to go back to double check, but I mean, even with that, it's not like she recommends a ton of books in the ISIS papers. Neely Fuller Jr., The Code Book, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, Racial Matters, and specifically she says No one, white or non-white, should talk about racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works, if you've not read that book. I'm paraphrasing. But that's on like page 1 of the ISIS papers. Most of the people that I know that brag about Dr. Welsing and or the ISIS papers have not read Racial Matters. The guest we had on Monday, David Houck, white man, said he is familiar with the book. He had it, but he'd not read it. He wrote a book on Freedom Summer, Mississippi, 1964. There's a whole chapter in Dr. O'Reilly's book on Freedom Summer and those murders. How much of an omission is that? That's what I've been thinking about. And particularly when I thought Dr. Houck, his official title is like the Black Liberation Scholar at Florida State. Like, I have to give the exact, this is one where I want to strive for accuracy, to give his exact title at Florida State. And why I said, oh, that's even more galling. Let's see. There we go. Rhetorical criticism of the Black Freedom Movement. Well, it's probably in the description that I wrote up for the program. I have to go back and look, but it's like, it's a part of his CV profile, if you will, and to not have any sort of mention of COINTELPRO, major omission. That's been a big theme this year when these white experts write these books and they have major glaring omissions, what to make of it. Anyway, I thought it was such a glaring omission that I called Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly because we've interviewed him twice. I have his contact information in my Rolodex. So I call him. He picks up like on the first ring or what have you. And I wrote this book, Freedom Summer. You have a whole chapter on that. No mention of COINTELPRO. He says, He says, well, some of their more aggressive tactics didn't pick up till later, but, and I was going through some of in fact, I read that passage, that he has on page 173, where he talks about, Hoover saying that they were going to put pressure on the white sheriff because they had information that he was having sexual relations with Negro women. And I read that part to him. He said, dang, I forgot all about that. And I said, I forgot about that too. I was so ashamed that I didn't bring that up when he was a guest on the program. And he said, man, Hoover and those guys, they lie all the time. So, I mean, there's no, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But with the sheriff case, this is probably true because there was so much of this. The sheriffs, this was, he said people talk about the Catholic priests and all that. You could include the Boy Scouts too, but all the sexual abuse of children and all that. But he said, I mean, hey, that's widespread. So he said the sheriffs, yeah, they are, like in this case, he was talking about the sheriff and his sexual relations with Negro women. But he said this would also include young girls and young boys. Anywho, in the midst of all this, because I had been thinking, I think this is a major error to not include this. Any white person, any non-white person, really, to write a book about the so-called civil rights movement, any of these people, you include the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and you don't have a mumbling word about COINTELPRO? Part of the saying, because that's a part of the pattern where white people write this information and they do not include pertinent detail. I mean, if we're talking about the freedom movement, then hey, no one has been more responsible for undermining, sabotaging the so-called Black freedom movement than COINTELPRO and the race soldiers, J. Edgar Hoover, very people that he mentions in the book. Anyway, so I said, man, we need to do more work on COINTELPRO. Not that we haven't done John Potash, William Pepper, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, Racial Matters. One of the first 20, I even said to think about that now. He didn't include COINTELPRO in his work at all. Most people don't. The cows, we've done more than 2,000 programs. Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, Racial Matter, was one of the first 20 out of 2,000. More, well over 2,000. Anyway, all of that short, I said, man, I have his contact information. We should just have Dr. O'Reilly on again to go back and address racial matters second time around and cover all the things that I've missed. So we will do that again. Next Wednesday, a week from today, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, third time, second, and we have never done that, to have one guest on 2 times to talk about the same book. We will do that with racial matters. And we had people who said, why don't you put this in the book club? Again, listeners, you all have zero input on the book club. See the Man in the High Castle. 2, another reason that listeners have zero input on the book club is because I don't know what else to call it but laziness, if there's a better term. And I really avoid categorizing anything really that victims of racism do as lazy. But in this case, I don't have a more accurate descriptor. And I've thought about this for some time. Most of the time, when non-white people, Cow's listeners, recommend or suggest a book to me or talk about a book to me, they're talking about a book they've not read. Major problem. Reading is more important than watching television. Dr. Welsing said that as well. Now with racial matters, that will probably never be in the book club now, because we now will have had the author of that book on twice to talk about said book. So you would have had not one, but 2 different chances spread out over 13 years to read this book, supplement it with what we talked about on the program. If you missed something, didn't understand, got confused, bang! You now have a week to read it again, go back, reflect, prepare your question, and bammo. It would be I like to have diversity. There's so many different books and what have you, so it'd be very unlikely. Plus, I will have to read this book again, so now I will have lost count of how many times I have read this book. That also, I don't mind reading a book that I've read once or twice, but I mean, once Gus has had to read a book 3 or more times, oh man. That is very de-emphasized for the book club, which again, listeners have zero input for the book club. See the Man in the High Castle. Now, since we're on Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, his name is so hot it kept coming up this week. I just mentioned him with Racial Matters on Monday. A listener emailed and said, hey Gus, we should consider this book for a read. Now, I don't know if they were pitching for the book club or if they were pitching as a guest on the program, either of which would be totally unacceptable. As I just said, listeners have zero input for the book club. See the Man in the High Castle. White guests only. Now, I don't know what it is. We have exceptions like today, which is extraordinary for many reasons. This is not oh yes, the floodgates are open. Suggest all of the non-white people you would like to talk to. No. White guests only. No exceptions. If I see something from time to time that says, ooh, this is a unique opportunity to learn, I will try to take advantage. Generally, that's not a black person writing a book about racism. 9 times out of 10, that is not a black person writing a book about racism. So the book that was suggested, I posted. It's titled Prejudicial Black America and the Presidents. My paraphrase, it would be a book that details the history of generally individuals classified as white being president of the U.S. and then practicing racism against black people. Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly basically wrote the same book, Nixon's Piano. We talked about that. He was a guest on the program to talk about that book specifically in 2010, his second visit to the Cows. I will tell you how do the young people say it, like Mr. Gunn, how do they say it? We're built different. Really, Gus T and the rest of you all, we're built different. most of you all, not all, but most, and white people are to blame, but that really does not make a difference. Most of you all, you hear an author talking about a book, a podcast, YouTube, whatever it is. You'll hear a review, whatever. You'll see them on television talking about their book. You don't read the book. That happened with this book. Gus T actually got the book. Now, I will tell you another difference. This is one that I heard a decade ago, and now I read like that. They will tell you a difference. Some people will say a difference between people that are like grad school, scholars. When they get a book, normal people, they get a book and they'll look at the table of contents. What are the chapters? What is it talking about? Scholars get a book. They might look at that. They go to the end. What are the references? What sources did they use to compile this information? That's what I do now. Now, at 13 years at the cows and 2,000 plus, frequently what I'm doing, I'm looking to see now what references, authors, whatever, people are they citing that we have interviewed. That's what I'm doing. So with this book, Prejudicial, Black America and the Presidents, talking about racism and the presidents, does she mention Kenneth O'Reilly's Nixon's Piano, which is the exact same book? Yup. Repeatedly. I don't want to read this. Now, I go, since it's by chapter on Thomas Jefferson. Let's look and see. She has a whole chapter on Thomas Jefferson. Sally Hemings doesn't get mentioned at all. No, I don't want to talk to this person. No, I don't want to read this book. And in fact, this is what I expect, generally speaking, when non-white people write books on racism. I don't expect, oh my gosh, this is going to be accurate scholarship on what white supremacy racism is and how it works. I expect something like this. And it's a lot of reasons for that. White editors, racism, white supremacy, terrorism, we're confused, long list. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact the product is something like this. Now, why would I want to talk to VGQ for sure, but I mean now really? I'm supposed to talk to this person and I bring this up and, oh my gosh, you're picking on and hating and all the rest. No, I don't even want to talk to you. All the best. I hope you sell millions of, well, I don't know about that because I mean, hey, really. As a history major, like really, what am I to say? How do you write a chapter on Thomas Jefferson and racism, white supremacy? You don't have a mumbling word about Sally Hemings? What am I to say? Oh, that's what I said. White guests only, no exceptions. And I said suggesting content like this really for either the book club or as a guest. I look at all this as trolling, like I have to waste my time even responding, like really even to have to flip through this. Like, are you flipping serious? Oh my God. Oh, Nixon's Piano. That would be the book to read unless I really, really miss something. Reading is more important than watching television. And in fact, even if I get one more on the reading, frequently when you hear these authors talking and doing interviews, they're talking to someone who also has not read their book. Now, how much detail do you really think you're getting even listening to most of these interviews, podcasts, or whatever it is with the author? White author we had on the program Monday said that I was going to ask him that question. It was beautiful because I didn't even have to. He volunteered it and said exactly the same thing. Wow, it's unique to speak to an interviewer who actually read my book. Reading is more important than watching television. That's one of the reasons we did the program today, because we did read Sundown Towns in the book club. Ooh, whew. Now I know St. Joseph, racially restricted region. Oh my gosh. Yes. Let's talk to Mr. Gunn. How on earth do you end up in a racially restricted region at a fair being terrorized after everyone that cares about you has told you, don't go over there? That's why this was unique. Like, ooh-wee, can we please take an opportunity to learn? If anything, wow, this problem is extraordinary. And I would say again, like when you have offspring, racism, white supremacy would have to be front and center. And no one I knows does that. It would have to be like reading, math, 1 and 1 is 2. Racism, white supremacy is global system of people dedicated. And nobody does that. And even then, that's no guarantee of success. Like I said, Dick Gregory, but I mean, at minimum, it would have to be that. And since that's not done, oh man, that's what you get frequently. What they call it, we have to learn the hard way. That's Gus T. Renegade. That's Malcolm X. That's the vast majority of us. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she didn't come out saying she was a counter-racist scholar. She's a Marxist-Leninist. That's learning the hard way. Sometimes you don't even get to finish the lesson. Eric McGinnis. Could have been Mr. Gunn. What happened at the fair? Folks who dialed in with a hand up, if you have commentary on what you heard. Hopefully we got something rare. We don't normally have non-white people on the program. Yeah, see if we got anything that was worthwhile. And I don't know, maybe adjustments that we can make sharing material with other family. I don't know if people picked up any tips that they can learn. He said that he got some, I guess, gentle I told you so afterwards, and he would not go next time around, or he would at least think about it. But man, what did we learn from young Mr. Gunn? Folks who dialed in with the hand up should be with us. If you didn't get to ask a question, *61, and we will bring you into the line.
Yeah, Gus, victim from New Jersey. How you doing?
Beautiful day, beautiful day. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm outside while I talk to you. So this came right on time. I had a tough conversation with my mother. I picked up definitely more informed than the young man's father. I'm saying mother basically, says she's, tired of talking about racism. And it felt like I was sitting through a episode of the O'Reilly Factor. But unfortunately, I practiced patience. I gave examples of my life, things that she didn't know that I went through. She expressed things that she went through. So for that young man to be that young and also have parents to warn him about racism, that is just so important. And so definitely have to be patient with our family members. I mean, especially if you're speaking to an elder, mother, grandmother. I'm gonna ask him the episode about. I'm gonna ask him about, did he think what happened to him with the white terrorists, accusing him of stealing art? Was that prejudice or was that power? So he answered it to the best of his ability. Unfortunately, I hope that he left out of this thinking, just a better perspective. The allude back to my mother. After I finished reading Racial Matters, I just asked her, I said, listen, I want you to read a book. So I'm not, I didn't belittle her. I didn't, call her stupid. I didn't, I just asked her, how did she come to some of the conclusions that she had? What books did she read? What's her definition of racism? What she think racism is? So after I read the book Racial Matters, I'm going to then introduce her to Frances Cress Welsing. I'm going to introduce her to her work, her book. I'm going to introduce her. Then I'm going to graduate her to Nellie Crook. Hopefully she listens. I didn't want to go the route of YouTube clips, you know what I mean? Because again, I think you get a better grasp when you sit and read and really digest what you're reading and think. At the end of that conversation, it was productive. She understood where I was coming from, and she understood my definition or my interpretation of racism. Because I explained to her, I said, we're having this conversation, but we're having two different conversations. You're describing racism totally different than I am. So with that said, once I get finished this book, I will pass it on to her. Hopefully she practice some black self-respect and read the book and don't troll me and tell me she's going to read it and she's not. But I close.
Right on. Well, patience is huge. It sounds like even though his dad and some other folks may have got a "I told you so" in, patience is very important with attempted family members and such. So I'm so glad to hear that. I think if they are people who do read, right? I know some folks are a little more resistant to that, but if they do read, oh yeah, I think all the books that you suggest, Dr. O'Reilly's, and this is a white man too, got Dr. King's picture on the front page. If it's your mom, she's a little bit older than you, I would think, following logic. I mean, she'll know Dr. King. That'll probably have some resonance. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, she'll know, who that is. Like, she'll see names that she'll recognize, and they'll be victims. Like hearing how these folks were stalked and killed and unjustly prosecuted and terrorized and all the other dimensions of all of this. And starting out, in fact, with Jack Johnson. Well, oh, that was what he said when I called him. Oh, that was today. I forgot. It feels like everything just mushed. Like, that was today? Yes, that was hours before. So today, when I called Dr. O'Reilly, I was telling him, Dr. Houck, like, man, he didn't even say anything about COINTELPRO. And he was saying, well, when did it start? And he's talking 1964. And I said, man, I told him, with us, you started with, excuse me, with Marcus Garvey. And he said, well, really, Jack Johnson, if you want to talk about it. It's like, that's right. We talked about that on the program. Now, Jack Johnson, we're going all the way back to 1910 now. And the Freedom Summer is 1964. And he said, really? Jack Johnson? Yeah, 1910. But I mean, really? You go all the way back to that peonage, really, like into slavery, like we got to keep an eye on the Negroes, like. And I said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you want to talk about COINTELPRO in name, I guess, but that's the whole point of his book. This has been the whole, that's why he's coming back on the program Wednesday. Do this again. I don't think I can even give you another story. Books like this, even this, why it's white guests only. The whole COINTELPRO subject matter, we can ask him Wednesday. I'm not aware of any black people who have written books specifically about COINTELPRO. It may be mentioned, but this is the main thrust of what we're talking about is COINTELPRO. I'm not even aware. John Potash, white man. Ward Churchill, Jim Vanderwall, they wrote the COINTELPRO papers and Agents of Repression. I remember, that's one of the early books that I read. Like, this is my wheelhouse. This is, as they say, metaphor. Like, this is foundation of my history degree, this subject matter, how I got to counter racism to begin with. But it's like all white people, you're not reading black people, even though they're all talking about it. Now this again goes, now who is informed about racism? Now you want to start, who are the experts on COINTELPRO? You're generally going to be talking about white people.
Gus, if I can interject, the first history book that I read was Before the Mayflower. No, not the first book I read, but one of the first black history books I read was Before the Mayflower. And if I could recall, you're 100% correct. There was no mention of COINTELPRO. And I think the second and third book was Tony Brown's two books, White Lives, Black Lives. I don't think there was no mention of COINTELPRO in those books either. Both books from Tony Brown that I read. You're 100% right.
That's most people that write on racism, but I mean, hey, in my opinion, hey, how do you talk about Dr. King and not mention COINTELPRO? How do you mention, and particularly now that it's on the official white record that these black males who spent all this time in prison didn't even do this assassination? Oh man, that's COINTELPRO too? Yes, that's COINTELPRO. How do you talk about it? That's why I said Stokely Carmichael, Bob Moses, Fannie Lou Hamer. These folks got enormous COINTELPRO for not a teeny, little paragraph, but folders and probably whole file cabinets, and such. Come on, man. And again, the people who wrote the books about all of this in detail, the people who stole the flipping files, the reason that we know about this, as we have been told, are white. Any other folks with us have commentary, Mr. Gunn, what they heard?
Hello? Yes.
Irie in Louisiana.
I could be yes, thank you. I could be incorrect, but it still sounds like he has some youthful optimism, which I'm not putting down optimism, but I think he just has more to learn because he wants to, from what I can understand, do integrate, even if it's for just a period of time, black people into St. Joseph to try to get them to get along. And I mean, I don't think he fully understands that these people are dedicated like that. And I hate to say it could be because he didn't get hurt. Sometimes people learn because, there's pain involved, and pain can be, our brains act with reward or consequence sometimes, and he seems like if he would have gotten hurt, then he might hang up the whole thing. But even if he wants, I don't know, he just doesn't, I don't think he gets it yet. And again, to know that Benton Harbor has indeed suffered from lead poisoning because of an emergency manager being appointed the same as Flint, Michigan, but yet St. Joseph isn't, to not have that connection made in his mind, to start seeing the codification on that side of, his region. And also, I think the teenagers this day and age, because my son is, he just turned, 19. And he kind of talks the same way every now and then. Oh, it's not as bad as it was when you were my age, or it's not as bad as it was when, great grandparents were their age. That's what they think. And it could be because of the propaganda that's being fed. To kids, social media. There's a lot more optics for not just integration, but just, oh, this doesn't matter, race doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, and all this it's just amalgamating things together. So it's easier to me for these younger people to dispel what they've seen, the evidence they've seen, because that propaganda is hypnotic in a way, and they really believe it. And I just think he had to hit his head on the rock to find out it was hard. I don't think this was enough. Yeah. I could be incorrect. Let me know.
Many of us still learning. I don't know. I think black people, victims of white supremacy, suffer extraordinary amounts of pain. So if that produced some sort of knowledge or intelligence, we would be PhD scholars in something, and that apparently is not the case. So let's see. Other folks who are with us who have a hand up, did y'all have commentary?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Bay Area mom.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I wanted to state that I thought he was wonderful. He's only 18. Look at his bio. He's not going to know a lot of stuff. Sometimes, especially the way the school systems are set up, and I'm sure where he goes to school, he just said it was multicultural, so he's not looking at it like that. I have my son is 3 years older than him. He wasn't looking at it like that. Even throughout, we talked, going to Boston. Oh, okay, thanks, no thanks. You have to go out there and, you go in to see. And so he even had hope to fix it somehow. He's like, I'm pull back next year, I'm going to be thinking of a way to make this, because they're not going to keep doing this. He had some kind of agenda, because he knew that wasn't just. And he was trying to replace this current system with a system of justice. However, only 18. And then maybe now he'll take some of the stuff his parents said. Oh, no, because my parents, everybody, he'll take it. Okay, well, you might be right. I'll consider it now, because he said next year he wasn't going, but he's thinking of a plan. I think he's wonderful. He's going to college. He's not all video gamed out or talking foolishness. He was late going to the event because he had other things to do. So he was wonderful. And he's still learning just like us. And just to be 18, he's off to a great start. And thank you. I'll mute myself. Thank you, firefighter.
Love it.
You're welcome.
Love it. Spoken like a mom. Retired firefighter.
Yes. In this part of the world, you will use as an example, the nice white person / nice white people propaganda is thoroughly pushed, and it is very attractive. It is earmarked for a lot of young non-white black people are exposed to it. They don't even have to go outside of their place of residence because it's on television. And when that person goes outside of the house, in a lot of places, it will be confirmed in a very deceptive way by white people, being very courteous, very nice, very generous. And that's what somebody like the young fella on the program is compacted with. He got a dose of white supremacy. I believe that he's going to remember it, but by some of his talking points, I've kept hearing the word coming together, people coming together, whether it was non-white people or non-white people quote unquote, coming together with white people. I heard that a lot. So that gives me the idea and understanding that the learning process that he is going to need is still there, because he's going to have to strengthen a more healthier suspicion of all white people. I'm not saying to be discourteous to anyone, and I definitely don't want to discourage him from not being a reporter, even in some of the most quote-unquote dangerous places, because it would be helpful to dismantling the system of racist white supremacy if a non-white person is able to go everywhere. And he may be that person. He may be that person. But I would say in the process of doing that, you have to be aware of the possibilities of what can happen to you in a split second by white people. In the process of being everywhere, because everyone takes risk. Everybody takes risk. Even though I worked on a job for almost 30 years where, anything can happen, when that alarm goes off. Even if the alarm doesn't go off, something bad can happen to you. That's actually is a part of being a victim of racist white supremacy. So basically what some of us were suggesting to him is to have a code, is develop a code. I forgot to say that directly, just what I said, which I have problems with, and I need to work on my words. I'll put it that way. And, so those are my thoughts on the particular guest today. Thank you.
Much obliged, retired firefighter. We all need to work on our words. Any other folks with commentary that they wanted to get in before we wrap up?
Yeah, real quick, if you don't mind. I want to thank the firefighter, because I think he articulated what I was trying to say better. That's basically it to a T. Like, I kept hearing things that let me know, to me, if he would have, I'm not wishing it on him. I just think because there was no injury, because of that, he still thinks that he can make a connection with these people. He didn't get hurt. And I just noticed that sometimes it takes people getting hurt in order to be like, oh, that doesn't work. That won't work. So I don't know. I'm with the firefighter. I think, we all still learning, but I don't think it hit him like you were in peril, young man, and that's it.
Anybody else? Comments they need to get in?
Gus, do you remember how he said that he was talking to the guy about the Bible and or whatever, and he just was kind of put it back on him as if you would have just left, the Christian way to do it, Jesus would have left, but you stayed and caused this commotion. And I just thought that was interesting. That's how he turned it around on him. That was real. I didn't like that, but I noticed that too. Thank you.
Religion of white supremacy. Yeah, absolutely. I thought, and totally, lying, defiling the scripture. As I said, Jesus is a troublemaker. He's confronting folks in the temple, the money changers and all that. I'm a heathen. Hey, I'm not trying to say I'm no religious scholar or anything, but I mean, he's a troublemaker. That's why he got hanged, lynched, if you will. He is not my bad. I'm going to be quiet and get on out of here. That's not the person I read about. I don't know what Bible he's talking about. They got different versions, right? Yeah, I thought that was especially tacky at the end. Where were you to come in and intervene? Like, we can talk about what Jesus would do. I didn't even do anything. I'm just here with my press credentials and a camera, What are you doing, nigger? Get out of here. Ha! Ha! You could have hopped in. Whoa, brothers, we're supposed to be Christian. Whoa, this is my brother. We just were talking about Jesus and going to the prisons to save the heathens. Like, back up, back up, back up. Then you can say, now, what would Jesus have done there? Do you think he should have left earlier? Or, did you accost those folks? You try to rape anybody? Then you can do all that. Nah. I wait till after, and he wasn't even safe then because he said that the white woman came over and was filming him like, police, come on, you see, he's posing, you see? Not, let me get you to safety, young man. You're just 18, you're a child. Let me shepherd you away from all of this. These cruel, racist heathens, let's get away from it. No. Does not get any better than tacky. I will say before we get ready to wrap up, I totally agree, Bay Area mom. Like, I'm so impressed. I mean, wow, his resume at that young age is extraordinary. Better than many people that are, 15, 20 years older than he is. Is trying to go out and do ambitious, constructive things like bravo. He is still learning, as are all of us. I do think just with concepts. So, because he said, he thought a white person could also be a victim of racism. Not having, so apparently with what his parents and everyone was saying, they were not giving him definition. This is racism, white supremacy, and it is, well, I guess they did say the danger bar because they said you get into the river, but no definition that this is a total system of racism. They are dedicated. This is not something that they're ignorant about. That word community, that's what I say, Mr. Fuller, where he talks about we don't have a community. White people have a community to themselves, and they do not want us in their community. That's what white supremacy racism means, like making that explicit. This is not a confusion. This is not they don't understand. We need to come together. All that rhetoric, so very common in the way that we talk about all of this. And apparently they didn't have books, because he said that too. I couldn't really think of books, so I guess they did not have like Dr. Welsing's book or Urugu or Mr. Fuller's book or, what have you to race it. We're going to go to the library and study racism or whatever, so that you end up with some books about racism to make sure that you have concepts, definitions about why these type of things happen. Everybody satisfied?
Yeah, Gus. Another thing that which sparked my interest, that one official that works in a racist town. I definitely just would have loved more detail on how is he coexisting in such an environment. And it's hard for me to believe that, and this is no fault of his, VGQ, not name calling, not calling him a coon or a sellout, but it's hard for me to believe that he is seriously talking about racism amongst those white people in that town. I don't think he can coexist. So I don't know if he's doing what they call is it code switching? I mean, when he get around black people, maybe he's Huey P. Newton, and when he get around, the people in that racist town, maybe he's Ben Carson, so maybe that's what he's doing to coexist. But I don't believe that he's having serious conversation about racism if he's the only black politician in this town full of terrorists.
Well, I did check just to see what I could find. Even the report that he mentioned, this is from Michigan Advance. State Senator, somebody called the police on the black boys on the campaign trail. State Senator Marshall Bullock told the Advance on Tuesday that someone called the police on him while campaigning in West Michigan on Saturday for a Democrat who is trying to unseat state Republican Pauline Wenzel. Bullock was door knocking in a affluent riverfront residential community in St. Joseph racially restricted region when Chokwe Pitchford, the 21-year-old House Democrat nominee from Benton Harbor, and Riante Bell mentioned a candidate for the Berrien County Commission. All three are African-American males. Bullock said they were approached by a St. Joseph public safety officer. As soon as I saw the squad car pulling up, I said, this is about to be some bullshit. That's what it says in the report. Like they got I can't live. Woo! Referring to a recent series of incidents across the county between blacks and police, which has sparked a resurgence in the Black Lives Matter movement. Michigan's 79th House District is located in the southwest corner of the state and includes the majority African-American city of Benton Harbor, as well as the overwhelmingly white St. Joseph and Watervliet, among other communities. And they give more details about the stop and how they were harassed and, you know, what the officer said and all that. But 3 black males, all of them have on collars, ties, 2 of them have on glasses. Well, we just talked about that. We said, man, if black male, black people, period, you want a little bit more safety, get glasses. Well, 2 of the 3 had on glasses, so doesn't solve everything. And then maybe that's just too much black Negro maleness to overcome. Like, you can't have 3. Like, if it had just been 1 of them, okay, but 3? Oh, and he's got a hoodie on. I was wrong. 2 of them do have on collared shirts, and 1 of them even has a tie on, but all of that is squashed. Negro in a hoodie. It's, yeah. And a bright colored hoodie at that. Like, geez, man, oh man, like, wrong decision all the way around. Listen to Neutralizing Workplace Racism for better wardrobe decisions. Not that, you know, might not have made a difference either. Anywho, I'm super glad we did the program. Man, he said the word crazy. He said community, words are important. Crazy. I do not think that it is crazy that this situation happened at this moment at all. He's doing this project on racism in his hometown, Benton Harbor, basically both these areas, really, 5 minutes. Doing racism on this region, and this incident happens, and then he even comes on this program. You all give book recommendations and what have you, and he's so young, about to start college and all of that, working on this project. Not crazy, not a coincidence at all. Exactly the way things were supposed to happen, right and exact. I hope he contacts the author of The Other Side of the River, read the book, and then contact the author, and because I'm sure he will, you know, hook it up and be a part of you all's project. Might even, you know, help it get more attention and inform, so you'll have more information to better understand why this event happened to young Mr. Nicholas Gunn. We'll wrap things up. We'll be here tomorrow for the book club, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Much obliged for folks tuning in. Hope it was constructive having a non-white person on the program. White guests only, no exceptions. That said, sobriety would be best. Imagine if he had been under the influence. If you're out and about, this sort of thing happens, exit. That's what he was trying to do. Exit. This is not time. Who are you calling nigger? And I'm going to show you. They could have been armed. Exit. Unless you're ready to kill and or die immediately. If you're in a vehicle, you're sober, buckled up, not on your mobile device, doing the small things that we can to minimize contact with race soldiers, badge or no. That said, Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. No name calling, no gossiping, no reckless production of offspring, and mandatory talk to your children honestly and often about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works with books.